They say it takes a village to raise a child, because children need a lot of different people to look out for them. Families can use all the help they can get. After all, no parent is perfect. That's why McCoy leads the Early Intervention and Prevention Initiative. We want to showcase all of the excellent programs in our city that help families learn and grow together. Because when we learn and grow together, we make our village a better place to live. Thank you for tuning in. We hope you enjoy this episode of Our Kids, Our Families, Our Communities.
Hello, you're watching Our Kids, Our Families, Our Communities. My name is Mitzi Wilson. I'm the Early Intervention and Prevention Initiatives Director at McCoy. And this is a show for our community to provide important information and resources for families to help youth thrive and grow. So for today's topic, we're going to be focused on gun safety. And so I'd like to begin by introducing you to our guest. We have Jane Hedin. She's the Be Smart lead for Moms Demand Action for Gun Sense in America. We have Deandra Yates with Purpose for My Pain. And we have Officer Vincent Stewart with the Indianapolis Metropolitan Police Department. So before we jump into our conversation, I would just like to provide the opportunity for you to introduce yourself and share a little bit about your work. So we can begin with you, Jane.
Well, Moms Demand Action for Gun Sense in America is an organization that began 4 years ago in the wake of the Sandy Hook shooting. It actually was begun by a woman in Zionsville, and it is now the largest grassroots gun violence prevention organization in the country. And we work on a number of different fronts. We work legislatively, but we also have a program called Be Smart for Kids, which is why we're here today, and that is our program to help reduce the number of unintentional child deaths that result from unintentional shootings. So,
thank you. And Deandra.
In the wake of my family being personally affected by gun violence, I started a foundation or a not-for-profit organization called Purpose for My Pain. And what we do is really our focus is on those who have been injured by gun violence, but of course we know that, so many people die each year from gun violence as well. So we support their families in the aftermath of a shooting. We provide resources. We raise money for different things that they may need, such as therapy, whether a new pair of shoes, anything like that. And then we have a very, very strong support system where we connect different survivors together of gun violence and just get together and love on each other. And I do a lot of advocating. I also work with Moms Demand Action, who has also a support network called Everytown for Gun Sense in America. And through there, we do a lot of advocating for gun legislation.
Thank you.
I'm currently assigned to our Community Engagement Office, and within the office we take on many of things. So to prevent gun violence and as well as trying to prevent the tragedies that occur within our city, we take part in things such as our 80 Eagle program that the NRA basically promotes, but then we take it a little bit further. Besides going to the schools from pre-K all the way up to 5th grade, we go in there and we talk about gun safety, what to do in case you come across a gun, which is stop, don't touch, run away until they're grown up. And then from there, we also work with younger youth or teenagers. So as part of our PAL, which is our Police Athletic League, and within that, we offer mentorship programs. And then also a part of our office is the OK program, which stands for Our Kids. So we kind of try to do the whole old saying of it takes a village to raise a child. So besides offering mentorship program, the 80 Eagle program, and just making sure that kids understand the ramifications of if they do become part of violence and using guns, and that it's not like a video game. So we try to really give that holistic approach.
Thank you. And kind of, on that note, really why is it important for parents and caregivers and youth to be in this conversation about gun safety?
Well, when we talk about gun violence, one of the most tragic aspects of gun violence is that 1,300 children in America die annually as a result of gun violence. As far as the Be Smart program goes, approximately 100 that we know of, and it's believed to be drastically undercounted, but 100 of those are as a result of unintentional shootings that happen when a child is able to gain access to an unsecured weapon. So whereas Officer Stewart and the Eddie Eagle program talk to children about what to do if they come into contact with an unsecured gun, our focus is on adults and making sure that children never come into contact with an unsecured weapon, that it's an adult responsibility to secure that gun and keep it out of the hands of children in the first place.
Thank you. And when you say unsecured gun, what is an unsecured gun? And a parent may think that, if the gun is in a drawer, that it's safe, but really what does it mean when a gun is unsecured?
Sure. Yes, a lot of times people bring a gun into their home as a form of protection, to protect their family. However, if it's not locked and stored separately from ammunition, it is then what we term unsecured. And a lot of people will think that if they put a gun up out of reach of a child, up in a high place, or if they hide it away from a child, that child isn't aware of its presence in the home or will not access it. We know, studies show that children under the age of 10, approximately 70% of them know where the gun is stored in their family's home. And even more startling, about 36% of those children have accessed and touched the gun, handled it. So that's really disturbing. And Indiana, based on 2016 data, ranks 4th in the nation for unintentional shootings of youth. So it's a really big problem here. That's why we're trying to get out in the community and educate parents about locking up their guns and storing them separately from ammunition. And we do offer free gun locks through this program as well.
Thank you. Mm-hmm. And Officer Stewart, to kind of shift back over to you, why has it become important, or why is it important for IMPD to really be in the gun safety conversation?
Certainly, I think IMPD has always taken it very seriously, especially with our young youth and guns. However, just because of the numbers, and we are starting to see that occur more often where young children are getting access to guns and they're either injuring themselves or injuring a sibling or even a parent and so forth. So that's why we try to take a approach where instead of being reactive, we're being proactive. And so that's why I've been tasked with and have the opportunity and been given the blessing by supervisors to go out to the schools, whoever will have me, to teach the Eddie Eagle program, or if it's just a real conversation amongst teenagers about the ramifications, like I've said, of gun violence. Because I think a lot of people don't understand conflict resolution and, the whole thing of guns do kill. And unfortunately, we just live in that type of society where people don't understand what life really means or the value of life. So kind of going back to your question is, we've always taken this seriously. We've had programs such as the GREAT program, which stands for Gang Resistance and Education Training. And that's always been taught, but just try to bring that Eddie Eagle program back to make sure we instill that in the youth, that if they do come across that gun, if the parent did leave that weapon out, what to do. But then also talking to our teenagers and saying, hey, it's not just the fact that you're affecting your life, you're affecting someone else's life if you do pick up a gun. So we've always taken it very seriously.
Thank you. And Deandra, can you share with us about your work with Purpose for My Pain, and if you would like, a little bit about your story?
Okay, so I appreciate you going out and talking to teens about the ramification of gun violence, because I think in the moment they don't think beyond, the gun and pulling the trigger. They get caught up in not knowing how to solve conflict, and they choose to, alter people's lives without thinking it through. So, which is what happened to us, we believe. My son was attending a birthday party at a friend's house. The boy was turning 15 years old. My son was 13 at the time, and there was a fight inside the party, not involving my child at all. And next thing we know, shots rang out. We don't know to this day if the people inside the home that were fighting are the ones that pulled the trigger. We just don't know. But my son caught a stray bullet to the back of his head, leaving him a quadriplegic and unable to speak. So through the last 3 years, Dre has progressed, not to what we, hope and pray for every day, but he's still here, and every day he's fighting to come back. But every day I am faced with the ramifications of what gun violence does, especially to an innocent child, an innocent bystander. So through the pain of my son's shooting, I found a purpose for my pain. It's just, it's really not a pain that you can put into words, to have your kid's life taken or severely altered in Dre's. And a lot of times people think, oh, they live, they're fine. Well, no, my son's not fine. He's 16, he's not driving. He didn't go to prom these past weekends with his friends. He doesn't live the life that we ever thought he would be living right now. So it's just so important for people to understand that. So through Purpose for My Pain, I have been able to go out and speak. I speak to youth, I speak to parents, I'll speak to whoever will listen, so that they can understand that gun violence doesn't just even affect the shooter, the person they shoot, but it affects at minimum of 100 people associated with that victim. So every day my other child hurts. My mother aches for her grandson. My grandmother, who took very good care of my children while I worked and attended school, misses who Dre used to be. So that is what we do through Purpose for My Pain, amongst other things. We raise money for families affected by gun violence. But I would like us to focus more this year on being proactive. We need to do things to get people more engaged in the conversation now and not after the trigger has been pulled.
Thank you for sharing, and your work is very inspiring, to say the least.
Thank you.
And hopefully with this show today, we are beginning that conversation. So when should parents and caregivers start speaking to kids about gun safety? Is there a time that's too soon, or what's the ideal time?
I have young children myself. I have a 4-year-old and a 7-year-old, and I have talked to them about the steps that Officer Stewart mentioned. If they see a gun, stop, don't touch, run away, and tell an adult. However, I will say that every study has shown that even when children are educated about what to do, if they come into the presence of an unsecured gun, they will touch the gun anyhow. So it's not a substitute for adult action and adults being responsible. So yes, I say start that conversation early, but know that we can't rely on curious kids to keep themselves safe, that adults need to be responsible.
Thank you. And I know that there's also kind of, the mix of, really the conversation around gun safety, but there is also, some general gun violence that's happening in our communities, like you alluded to, Officer Stewart, talking about conflict resolution and kind of how conflicts can, escalate, and then there's a gun present, and it's dramatic results. Do you want to kind of add around that, or Deandra, if you have comments on that?
I just think, like you said, it's just so important to be proactive, and we need to keep continuing having these conversations and keep doing things like what you're doing, and putting the situations in the face of children, putting a face to gun violence, and letting them know. When I talk to kids, I say, think about your mom. If you decide to pull a trigger, someone's going to jail, someone's going to die, someone's going to get injured. And I am very, very transparent when I speak. I show pictures of my son. I tell them he's 16 and I have to change diapers because of what a bullet did to him. You have to be very honest. You have to be very upfront and get to the heart of the matter. We can no longer patty cake with these kids on gun violence. Every day I turn on the news, another person has lost their life or been injured to gun violence. It's just the last 2 weeks have been just crazy. My neighbor, she lost both parents in a week and a half to gun violence. Thank goodness that she was being taken care of by someone else. How do we continue on not being proactive? How do we continue on not doing anything when 9-year-olds have to lose mommy and daddy to gun violence, when I have to bathe and provide 24-hour care for a 16-year-old who should be taking care of me in some regards, like running errands to the grocery store? So I think that we have to continue to be proactive, be in the face of the children, and let them know that this is real. And it is forever life-altering.
I agree wholeheartedly with Ms. Yates. The sad thing is the old cliche, nobody is concerned unless it happens in their own backyard. And I follow Ms. Yates' story just because when they're talking about no one spoke up, no one came forward, it's not like people in the community did not know. It's unfortunately we're still battling the whole no snitching thing, and that's a battle. Unfortunately, we have fought for years, especially now more so than ever. And you cannot tell me somebody does not know what happened, and either they are afraid to come forward or they say it's not my problem. Let's keep it moving and so forth. But no one gets concerned unless it happens to them directly, or it affects them directly. I don't think no one really understands like the propensity of what Ms. Yates is talking about with her child, and the fact that she has a teenager that she is still having to take care of. At one point in time, was taking care of himself, and so just a life switch, and that's a battle. I'm sure she would agree. That's a battle of trying to get ahead of the game. And what I mean by that is getting into the schools, getting to be able to talk to teenagers, because a lot of schools, a lot of organizations are like, oh no, that doesn't happen here, or that'll never happen to none of our kids, or something that I'm dealing with right now. When I was trying to bring Eddie Eagle into a particular school, it wasn't a big deal, but now that a child has used a gun at a young age, now it's now we want you, and it shouldn't be like that. It should be where my phone number and or my email is blowing up saying, hey, yes, we want you to come and teach about gun violence. We want you to come talk to our young youth. We want you to show that this is what can occur if someone uses a gun illegally, and not just the fact that the family that the gun touches is affected, but their family is affected, whether that's them going to jail, whether that's them being killed, the mother's love, just all of those things, conclusive in regards to the loss of life. And people, I feel like sometimes many people are naive about that.
Thank you.
I agree with that.
And so what are some of the things in terms of the programming, the preventative programming that's being provided? What are some of the things that are being taught, whether to families or to youth?
Well, the Be Smart program uses the acronym of SMART for 5 concrete actions that adults can take to help keep kids safe from unintentional shootings. So the S stands for securing all guns in homes and vehicles. We can't forget about doing that in our vehicles as well. And as I mentioned before, that means to lock up the gun and store ammunition separately. And as I mentioned, free gun locks are available either through our organization, through the Marion County Health Department, or through the Indianapolis Police Department, I believe, as well. And the M stands for modeling responsible behavior around guns, and that these recommendations actually come from the National Shooting Sports Foundation, which represents gun manufacturers, and they suggest making an informed decision when you bring a gun into your home, whether making sure that all adults support having the gun in the home, that they're willing to engage in training, and that when they handle the weapon, they'll do so responsibly. So they're not going to rely on the safety to make sure that the gun doesn't fire. They will always assume that the weapon is loaded, for example, never pointed at anything that they don't intend to shoot. So those are some examples of modeling responsible behavior. The A stands for asking about the presence of unsecured weapons in any home that your child would be playing in. And so this is a conversation that we're trying to normalize. So when you send your kids to another home, whether it's to the babysitter's home or for a play date, or whether it's even to another family member's home, to ask if there are guns present, how they're stored. We certainly respect the right of responsible adults to make a decision whether or not to keep a gun in their home, but to ask about how those weapons are stored so that when you're sending your child into that situation that they're not going to be going into a situation that's dangerous. The R stands for recognizing the risks of teen suicide. This is another really big problem in Indiana. We have the second largest number in the nation of teens that have attempted suicide. And the presence and availability of a gun in the home is found in some studies to be a greater risk factor than an underlying mental illness, just because of a teen's impulsive nature. They have a bad day and they can't see beyond that, so they come home and they make an impulsive decision, and if there's a gun available and they choose to attempt suicide with that, a gun is the most lethal method of suicide attempt. So recognizing those risk factors and making sure that you secure your gun all the time, from when you have small children in your home through when they're teenagers. And then finally, the T stands for telling others and spreading this message.
Thank you. And those are all kind of, very important, clear, logical steps. So the SMART acronym. And, through your organization, they can find that. Is there a website that
There
they
is a
can look
website.
at?
It's called besmartforkids.org. We also have a new Facebook page. So if you search Be Smart for Kids on Facebook, you'll find that as well. It's a volunteer-run program. We give free presentations to any group throughout the state of Indiana. And we also have free materials, handouts available on that website as well.
Thank you. And Officer Stewart, can you touch on a few of the things that children learn in the Eddie Eagle program?
Certainly. It's funny, it's cute, but it actually does deliver an important message. So basically, besides the fact that we play the video, we sing along with the kids because we understand at that age, kids, remember things by the catchy tune. But the main importance of it is if you come across a gun, stop, don't touch, run away, tell a grown-up. And then after we do all that, we go through everything such as what a police officer wears on a gun belt, and we really focus on the gun and don't touch the gun. You'll be amazed on how many times we go into classrooms and the first thing they do is come in and try to grab our gun. And so we have to have an immediate lesson on do not touch guns. And then from there, like I said, we work with teenagers as well, but then we also work closely with the Marion County Prosecutor's Office, and they put on a program called EKG, which is Educating Our Kids About Gun Violence. And with that program, they come in, and not only does the prosecutor come in, or one of the deputy prosecutors, but then they also bring in a nurse or somebody of that magnitude from Eskenazi or a local hospital, and we talk about the magnitude of what a bullet can do, gun violence, and they also show us some pictures in regards to what that actually looks like. And we're not trying to do the scare straight tactic. We're trying to show that there is a strong propensity, if a gun's involved, that you may lose your life, or you may lose the control of your bodily functions, whether you may have to, I forget the bag what it's called, but my point, colostomy bag, where life is not normal as it used to be. So it's one of those deals, stop and think before you make those type of decisions. Don't just think about today, think about tomorrow. And so we really try to emphasize that. So it's when I say the word holistic approach, not only are we trying to get the kids at a very young age from pre-K to 5th grade, but then we go to the teenagers, and when I say the teenagers, we try to be a mentor to them. We try to show them, hey, please, whatever you do, let's have conflict resolution. Not the fact that you got to go tell on somebody and so forth, but let's come together. And most of the time when that has happened where we've noticed that maybe two males are getting into it and so forth, we'll have a conscientious talk and say, what is this really about? And then at the end of the conversation, they realize it was about nothing. And then also some of the things that we are fighting is social media. People get into it over social media. He say, she say, things of that nature. And for what? For nothing. And then, like I said, we work with the Marion County Prosecutor's Office with the EKG program. So we are trying to hit it from all angles to try to stop the violence that's going on in our city.
Thank you. And that's, very important prevention work. And I wanted to take a moment just to highlight the work that you're doing, Deandra, the supports that you're providing to families. Could you share a little bit more about that and how people might access your services?
Okay, a few weeks ago we started a trial advocate where we had a lady from our group go to court with a mom as she was going through trial for her son's. Her son was shot and severely injured, like Dre, and it was time for his sentencing. So she went and she supported that family through the week of trial. So that was our launch of that, and it was very successful. I was so excited. And through the Survivor Network, I'm always connecting with survivors and being encouraging and just being that support for someone who's had similar pain. But Purpose for My Pain next week on May 11th, we'll be launching our official support group meet and greet, and that's for parents who have experienced loss of any kind, and when due to gun violence. And when I say loss, I mean me. I lost what Dre used to be, so it doesn't have to be completely in the physical. It can be in the mental as well. So we're launching that next week at Grindstone Charlie's in Speedway from 6 to 8 p.m. next Thursday, and what else we got going on? We have a lot going on. We have we're partnering with Dolls Entertainment, and they're doing a Stop the Violence kickball tournament with the youth, and I'll be speaking at that. We're going into the Ronald McDonald House and feeding families there because the Ronald McDonald's has been a blessing to me. And the times that my son has gotten very sick, I've had to spend 21 days at the Ronald McDonald House, for shelter and food and for my basic needs. I basically had to move in there. So now we want to give back to that organization and take care of those families that are right where we used to be. And outside of that, I go out and I speak. I would love to speak to the youth that you engage with because they do need to see what a bullet can do to someone. So we do a lot of advocating as well.
Thank you. And can you share your website
Yes,
just so that
sorry.
families can access it?
It's www.purposeformypain.com, and that's the number 4. We also have Purpose for My Pain on Facebook, and we have the Pray for Dre page on Facebook where people can follow my son's journey of healing.
Thank you. And as we are kind of wrapping the show right now, I did just want to offer you time if you had any final words or comments for our viewers to definitely share those now.
Yeah, I guess I would just say that that message of we need to be proactive about this. We cannot be reactionary anymore. We really are in an epidemic of gun violence in our country right now, and that includes, intentional as well as unintentional gun violence. And we have to be out there and educating our youth and our adults about how to get these numbers down.
Thank you.
I say the same. Just continue to be proactive. It's nice how we support families after the fact, but if we could stop having so many balloon releases and helping families raise money for funerals and things like that, I think we would just see a better change in our community if we can get on the other side of this thing and start combating it before it's confronted in our face, before more parents, I say mothers a lot, but I've met fathers who hurt just like I do, and just getting on the other side of this so that our kids can learn to live peacefully and live long, productive lives and not having to go visit so many of our children in the gravesites way too soon.
Thank you.
And if it is word, I third both of what these fine ladies have said. We need to be proactive. And like she just got through saying, it's time to stop all the balloon releases, all the RIP t-shirts.
Yes.
What we need is be proactive and also understand that it affects everybody. And stop and think. That's why I always try to convince the youth. Stop and think, because even though you may have gotten away with it today, something may happen to you tomorrow. And that's what happens a lot in this community. So with that being said, I do want to offer my contact information to get me into the schools, churches. We will go anywhere that people will allow us to come and be proactive about gun violence. And my contact information is Vincent, VINCENT, .Stewart, STEWART, @indy.gov.
Thank you. I
Thank
appreciate
you.
your
Thank you
time
for
today,
having
and
us.
this is a very important topic that, the goal is really to, like you said, get behind this, to really start taking steps for prevention, to make youth and families aware that there are steps that they can take now, and it's very important and it's time. So I thank you for watching our show today. If you would like to actually find a copy of this show, you can go to McCoy's website at mccouYouth.org. You can also follow us on our Facebook page as well, which is accessible through our website, as well as the YouTube channel. So thank you very much.